Frank, I know you're no stranger to seeing great players, on the opponent's bench. Just looking at some of the guys you're about to play this week, well, I'm not to rank them, but how much of a problem are they to defend?
They play five out. Like people, the big thing that's been created, about what the Houston Rockets are doing in the NBA, and whatever. That's how Georgia plays. They play five out. Rayshawn Hammonds has been a small forward his whole career there. Now he's their center. And he plays as a perimeter guy. That's how they play. Anthony Edwards is a special talent. Don't know him at all. Seems to be a lot of fun. He's always got a smile on his face and plays with an enthusiasm that's fun to watch. Their little point guard, Wheeler, didn't play much early in the year, but he's controlling the game now, and he's fearless. He's coming at you, and so it's and then they got the guys like Jordan Harris and Crump that've been there for a while that we've all played against several times, and this league is really good. You look once again. I told you guys going into the Ole Miss game that Ole Miss is a good basketball team. If you haven't watched them play, don't make assumptions based on their record. And, Penn State, everyone's raving about Penn State. Pat Chambers is a friend. I'm really happy for him. He deserves how hard he's worked to rebuild that program. He deserves for those guys to win games. Ole Miss beat them. And, but now Ole Miss gets in the SEC, and because they lose some games against really good teams in difficult fashion, now all of a sudden they're no good. And I've been here 8 years now. I'm tired of the way the story's told once we all get in league play in this conference. Georgia's same way. Memphis was the talk of the town, and they had that guy Jeffries playing. Georgia went into Memphis and beat them. And but now they're in league play, and it's hard, man. This league is really hard. It's really, really hard. And they got really good players. We have to go in there. They play really fast. It is a track meet. We have to figure out – I like playing fast. We got to make sure that we don't end up taking – I don't mind playing fast. We can't settle for shots that's not a strength when you play Georgia. There's some teams you might get away with it. You can't do it against Georgia because if you settle for a shot that's not a strength, that means you're not going to shoot a high percentage. So that means chances are there's a rebound. It's five guys flying at you, and one of them is ridiculous how good he is. So they put a lot of pressure on you that way. But it's winning's hard, man. This league's really, really hard, and the only thing that frustrates me, and I can care less who gets mad at me for saying this, is the people that cover our teams in this league. They don't watch the opponent. They always judge the opponent based on the record. So when we lose to a team, it's because we're no good. And if we beat one of those teams, it's because they're no good. And that doesn't happen in any other league. It happens here, and it's unfortunate.
Playing Georgia's a track meet a little bit. How do you go about coaching guys to how to run in transition maybe and taking good shots compared to maybe pulling up from three or driving when they're not supposed to drive?
Yeah, that's the next 2 days, today and tomorrow. We spend a lot of time speaking about those things, Colin. It's, people say I don't turn players loose. Yeah, you're right. If they get out of the way defensively, I take them out of the game. I'm not ashamed to say that. And if they take shots that they shouldn't take, I take them out of the game. But I don't have to do that very often because we spend so much time teaching that in practice. But this game coming up, it is imperative that those two things are done the right way. Defensively, we have to be very solid. We're going to have to make a couple of adjustments defensively. I'm not going to talk about those now. I probably won't speak about them after the game either because we got to play them again. But there's some things that we have to do slightly different defensively because of how they play. But it's okay. It's a minor adjustment. It's not like have to redo. It's not like having to go from 99% of man-to-man to 99% zone. That's not what I'm talking about. But we got to make the adjustments, and we will. And then offensively, we got to make sure that we don't settle for a shot that's not a strength. That doesn't mean we play slow. Just means we don't take shots that's not a strength. That's all it means. And we have to be we got to be careful with those two things. And we got 2 days to prepare for that.
Without wanting to go into those defensive adjustments, how important is Mike in a matchup like this, given how well he guards the perimeter?
I think Mike can be the defensive player of the year in the league. I mean, we do. I don't sit there and look at stats and like, oh my God, look where we're ranked. But I know what people tell me. And someone said that we're back to number one field goal percentage defense team in the conference. If that's what we are, our team defensive MVP is Mike Kotsar. I mean, he leads us in steals, leads us in blocks, defends every ball screen. They try to drive him when he has to switch. They can't. I think he's the MVP, defensive MVP in this league. I mean, he's really good defensively because he being so interchangeable, it makes the adjustment to play a team that plays like Georgia a little easier. It's not easy, just makes it a little easier.
You kind of mentioned Georgia being a team that will start flying down court, trying to get in transition. Does that open up some opportunities for Mike on the offensive, for Mike and really all your guys on the offensive glass, something you guys tend to do pretty well? Yeah,
the biggest phallus that exists in the way that people want to tell you that basketball's trending is that it's small ball that wins. It's not small ball that wins. It's who can defend on the perimeter that wins. So if you got a 6'10" guy that can't defend anybody outside of 15 feet, he better be a great offensive rebounder or an unbelievable low post scorer. If not, that guy's wasting his time. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Mike Kotsar can really, really defend on the perimeter. And conversely, on offense, we make Wildens and Jalen, Alonzo. It's one of the reasons I lose my mind with Alonzo is because he wants to play like in the paint flat-footed. That's not how we play. Last game we played, he was really active in the first half defensively. Guess what? He made a huge impact in the game. We need him to do the same thing. But then when we're on offense, then we need to get on the offensive glass. And how do you slow down a fast team? There's two ways of doing it. Number one, take whatever shot you want and run everybody back. Number two, beat them up at the rim. I got too much testosterone to run backwards. That's just who I am. So we're not going to run backwards. We're going to run the other way. It's how we play. I'm not going to change how we play. We just have to be real good there and take advantage of that. And by the way, I don't need testosterone boosters at this stage of my life yet. How about that? But it's who we are. We've spent 8 years trying to develop that personality that we're going to be physical at the rim. I'm not going to change how we play for one game. But we spend a lot of time with our bigs on having to defend outside of 15 feet. And doesn't mean it's going to be successful, but we prepare them for that so then we can take advantage of the strength on the other side.
With Mike, you talked a little bit about this before the season, but what can you attribute his growth to from last year to this year? Were there any kind of candid conversations that you had? Was it something off the court that clicked for him? What's enabled him to be so much better and so much more consistent this year from last?
All I've told him when last season ended is like, Mike, I can't do this like we've done it for another year with you. I can't keep treating you like a freshman. You've got to believe in yourself. Give him credit. You know, I've told him, I believe in you. countless times. I've told him, if he continues to play the way he's playing, he's an NBA guy. Nobody wants to tell you that. He's an NBA guy because of his size, his ability to defend, his ability to dribble, his ability to pass, and now he's making 15, 17-foot shots. I mean, I get the NBA says that that's a bad shot, but if he can make a 15, 17-footer, if he practices, he eventually will be a three-point shooter. So that has to come from within. The biggest fallacy that exists is that coaches create confidence in players. No, we don't. They got to believe in themselves. And then if they believe in themselves and they're at peace with who they are, then they're open to growing. Then as a coach, you can teach them and help them. And as they learn and they grow, their confidence continues to sprout. And I think that's what's happening with him right now, he's in a really good place internally with himself. Ask him. I know he's told me, but I'm not going to share something that's maybe private for him publicly. But if you ask him, if he wants to tell you, that's on him. But internally, he's at peace with himself, and he believes in himself. I think Jermaine's been really good for him, too, as crazy as that sounds. Because our guard play the last couple of years, they go backwards. Wes Myers, Hassani, Frank Booker, they played really hard, and they did what I asked of them. But Wes Myers and Booker didn't really – they were trying to figure me out. They couldn't help the other guys. And then last year, Hassani, Trey Campbell, A.J., three guards we had most of the second part of the year. Hassani, as good as he was and as much as he did, Hassani didn't know how to uplift a teammate. Jermaine's really good at that. A.J. and Trey, first year in the program, they're trying to figure it out. I think Jermaine's really. Mike played well in non-conference play, but here, since we turned the page to January, Jermaine has just been really good for Mike. I mean, some of the conversations Jermaine has with Mike and timeouts are like, as a coach, you sit there and you're like, wow, that's pretty good. But at the end of the day, he's at peace with himself. But ask him. I know he shared some stuff with me, but ask him. If he wants to tell you, let him tell you.
Concessions may be the wrong word, but are there certain realities you have to understand and deal with when you bring in an elite guy who everybody knows is probably a one and done, and fit him into a system in that way?
I think every coach is different. I mean, that's up to coaches, and I spent a lot of time telling my own children and our players, don't ever get wrapped up in people's relationships with other people. Get wrapped up in having your own relationship with a person. What do I mean by that? Don't worry about the relationship player A as a teammate has with coach. Worry about your relationship with the coach. And then player to player hold each other accountable. But don't get wrapped up in that relationship that exists between a player and a coach. We're all different human beings. We got different relationships. Before the one and done became a popular thing that people use for recruiting, I had two of them. And we didn't make any concessions. I can't speak for other coaches. I know I didn't. And I'm really close with the two guys. And I made zero concessions with them. No, I don't think so. I mean, at the end of the day, Jacob Pullen, who was also a freshman on that team, allowed me to coach him because he was part of me coaching Michael Beasley and Bill Walker. And if he realized that I coached those two guys and didn't back down and didn't circumvent the things that are important to us for their talent, I wasn't doing it for him either. Same thing here. P.J. Dozier. P.J. came here, McDonald All-American. I don't think I sacrificed what the things that are important to our locker room and our program to keep him happy. I think I focused on having my relationship with him and held him accountable the same way I held everyone else accountable. And I think it allowed everyone on the team to understand, like, okay, this guy, it's fair game. I think that's all we want in life is fairness. We don't want special treatment. People who want special treatment usually fail. In life, we all want fairness. And as long as the person in charge, for lack of better words, which is me, is fair, I think everybody's okay and at peace with me having a different relationship with everybody. I had a different relationship with Michael Carrera than I had with some players. But I had to, because Michael was a little loopy just like me. So we had to understand each other in a different way. But that's, every coach has to handle their business their own way. I can't speak for how Tom handles Anthony Edwards, because I don't know Anthony Edwards. I know Tom. Tom is not making concessions, and this is not his first rodeo here. Tom's coached really good players his whole career. Tom's really good at getting the most out of his players. Always has been. I don't know where that would change now. Cal, I've said this 100 times, he doesn't get the credit he deserves because he doesn't give in to talent. He keeps challenging talent to make it great. And I think that's what we have to do as coaches. But I can't speak for others. I know I haven't done it. I've had 3 guys that, if you include Sindarish in the conversation, which a lot of people thought he'd be a one and done, which he was at peace that he wasn't, but he had a lot of people telling him he was. I think if you asked all 4 of those guys, they'd say that I never sacrificed the things that are important to us to protect their talent. And I probably got 4 different relationships with all 4 guys. But the main thing is that now that we're all old and we're men, we're friends. And that's what keeps me at peace.
Kind of sticking with Anthony Edwards maybe a little bit. What does he do in the film that you've been able to watch that's so good? And how much pressure does that put on your defense, especially with a guy like Justin out?
Yeah, it's we put too much into guys that can outrun and outjump people. Oh my God, he's incredible. He's this. He is really athletic, but he's not into trying to dunk every ball. He plays in pace, plays for a young man his age, which I think this where Tom is really good for him. He understands how to play in space and with pace. That's what makes people difficult to guard. People that play head down 100 miles per hour, they're easy to guard. People that play like they're just trying to go dunk every ball, they're easy to guard. People that are athletic and understand how to play in space and with pace and can really shoot the ball, they're a problem. And that's what he does. He's got size. He passes the ball. It's not like he's trying to shoot every time he touches. He gets to the foul line. They can run ISOs for him at 15, 16 feet if he's being guarded smaller, and he knows how to shoot it from there and get to the foul line. If you're guarding him big, he plays out on the perimeter, and he can really, really shoot the basketball. He's a hard shot maker, which means he knows how to get his shot off regardless of who's guarding him. He's good. He's a real good player. It's we got our hands full. Our individual and team defense, especially on the road, has to be as good as we were in the first half against A&M, but collectively for the length of the game. It's because he single-handedly, like he did to Michigan State. I think he had like 25 in the second half against Michigan State. He single-handedly can just start making those shots, and once a player of his talent starts making certain shots, it makes it really, really hard unless you put 2 guys on him and then hope that the other 4 can't score against 3.
Coach, not to completely circle back to the beginning, you're talking about maybe perception of the league and coverage, but when you look at the bracketology right now, Michigan and Wisconsin, similar records to you. One's 14-9, one's 14-10. Their net is in the low 30s. Yours is in the mid 70s. From a national perspective, what do you think your team needs to do from here on out to try to surpass the teams that are seemingly even with you, but they seem comfortably projected into the field right now, where you guys are on this outskirts looking in?
We lost at home. It's plain and simple. There's no other. The only difference between their team and our team is that we lost to Stetson and BU at home. And you can also argue that we lost to Houston at home. You know, those 3 games makes your number. Does that make sense what I'm saying? It is what it is. That's the only difference. But the reason that we're where we're at is because we got some really, really good wins too. So we can't. When what I said earlier, what I said had nothing to do with NCAA tournament, it belong, don't belong. I'm just talking about who we are as teams in this league in the month of February. And it's not a Columbia perception. It's not a state of South Carolina. It's an SEC perception. And it's outside of the state of Kentucky. It's like all our teams that are 2-7 or whatever are no good. And no one actually watches them play. But they're no good because that's their record. And that doesn't happen in any other conference that I've been in. The Big East didn't happen in the Big 12, didn't happen in Conference USA, and it blows my mind. But it is what it is. It's part of the conversation. If we had not lost 3 home games, our net would be in the 30s. And we'd have the same record, and we'd be in the same conversation those teams are. But we did lose the game, so that's part of who we are. What I don't like is when we win a game in February and the game tries to be diminished because it's against a team that's not very good, when that's not true. Does that make sense what I'm saying? That's where my unhappiness. It's not about that we're not in the conversation for the NCAA tournament. Who cares? Really, seriously, who cares in the first week of February whether you're in, out, bubble, blew up, smoke? Who cares? Bubblicious. Blow your bubble with, who cares? At the end of the day, there's a day in March where the teams that belong are going to get in. And are we in a place where we can get there? I think we are, but got to win. It's not really complicated.
When you look at guys like Mike, guys like maybe Hassani or even Sindarius, whose games kind of really locked in their last year on campus, maybe even Frank Booker, is there a common theme you see in those kind of guys whose game takes that next step kind of in the last year?
Yeah, Michael Carrera, Mendalgas, go through my career, man. Seniors are very important to me. Those guys lay it on the line for you every day. They put that uniform on. They fight for your beliefs. They believe in the locker room. They believe in what you do. They believe in how you play. Seniors mean the world to me. It's a freshman always has next year. So does a sophomore. So does a junior. Whether it's at this school or another school, there's always another year. Seniors don't have another year. I just think that seniors get to a place where they're at peace with who they are. They get past the world of trying to prove people wrong or trying to get their feelings hurt because somebody doesn't think they're quite good enough. And they just get to a place where, you know what, who cares? I'm at peace with the people who believe in me. And let's just go do this and be at a peace of mind. And I think seniors get to that place. And that's what I'm about. I've never really cared outside of my family, players, and my bosses what critics have to say. I can care less. I'm not trying to educate everybody. I'm trying to educate the people who believe in me. So those are the ones I'm listening to. And when they get to that place, that kind of connects with who I am, I think, to a certain extent. So we worry about each other, our team, how we can help one another and not be consumed with all the outside garbage noise that exists. And I think that's why they do well. I really do.
obviously you're in the midst of your season and don't have a whole lot of time to see other things, but was wondering if you've had a coach or a team that's been a thorn in your side like UConn has for the women's team, and will you be watching that game tonight? And what do you think? Do you have any kind of prediction on that?
I mean, unless something crazy happens, I think it's going to be sold out, which is awesome. That's what it's all about. It's 18,000 people coming in here to watch basketball. In my lifetime, you can argue that Pat Summitt, Gino, Dawn have done more for women's basketball than anyone else out there, collectively. When you include her playing career and what she's accomplished as a coach, and where women's basketball has gone professionally from her playing days to where it's at now. And then, obviously Gino and Pat, what they did from a coaching standpoint during a time period where not a lot of people were actually paying attention to women's basketball. I think collectively those three, what they've done is incredible. And they've uplifted how we all pay attention to women's basketball now. Obviously, Pat's not with us anymore, but knowing that those two and their programs are going to be in our gym playing again, it's great. It's awesome. Obviously, I follow. Gino's a friend. Don's a friend. I got to root for the Gamecocks. I mean, it's Gino's been on top of that throne for a long, long time, and Don has. I think I heard Don say this. You don't just schedule teams. You try and get the best teams on your schedule and go find who the best is, and then you go play them every time. And you might get knocked down, but get back up, and you're trying to continue to shrink the gap. And the only way you shrink the gap is not by how many wins you have, is by continuing to play that opponent. And I think they've shrunk the gap, and I'm excited. I hope our women, who I love watching in practice, I get on that bike and watch them practice as often as I can. I hope they figure this one out tonight. It'd be a great step in the right direction. Not that they need fixing, because when you won a national championship a couple years ago and you've been to multiple Final Fours, I think you're in a good place. But when you're taking on the king, which is what UConn's been for the last 15 whatever years, and you've been trying to eliminate the margin of error there, I think it's a great opportunity for our women. I'm excited. I'm excited for the game. I'm excited for the people involved, and I'm excited for our team to see if they can finally get that thorn off their side. And I don't know, have I beaten Kansas at Kansas? That was always such an incredible place to play basketball at, and we came real close and couldn't get over the hump. We beat them at home. That would probably be something that, because that rivalry over there was so intense, and it was so important to so many people that, and it's Kansas basketball. It's going in there, and they got an incredible home record. I would say maybe that one, but I've never thought about it that way. I'll think about it. See, I don't know. We haven't had a lot of success here in this league against Alabama. I'm not going to say they're a thorn in my side. I really don't go to bed thinking they're a thorn in my side, but I do know that, they've beat us more than we've beaten them in my time here. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but that thorn on the side part at least. Thanks, guys.